Hey everybody, welcome back to Mind Keys and happy Monday to you all. I hope you're doing well. So today's video is a bit of an off script moment yet again here where I'm kind of coaching from my intuition, from my gut, from what feels like the appropriate message for the moment, more than what I had put down on paper as being what I was going to record today. So this message is kind of just something that's kind of re-emerged in a lot of what I'm seeing online in terms of, messaging I'm seeing around me. It seems like it's kind of in the zeitgeist, it's in the collective consciousness, and it's an incredibly foundational, key, important message that I want to pass along to you today. So I hope you really take it in, because this really is one of those crucial heart of the matter type things to really understand about your own healing, your own awakening path, your own spiritual growth path, your own personal transformation path, whatever path you're on. This is really at the fucking heart of it. This is actually a very deep transmission, but I'm going to try and keep it short sweet and really create some good clarity here for you. So let's go ahead and dive in. And just really quick, I should probably say and just acknowledge, if you hear any kind of weird noises, any kind of creaks or loud gusts or anything like that in the background, my apologies if the audio isn't perfect. It's really windy here today, and my house is kind of older and creakier and tends to make a lot of noise and kind of rattle around a little bit in the wind. Plus we've got, people coming home from work at this hour. We've got ice cream trucks out there. We've got, you name it. It's kind of a noisy day. So if the audio isn't perfect, even after I've cleaned it up for you, my apologies to you. And also really quick, for anyone who's new to the channel, a warm hello and welcome to you. My name is Dave. I'm a coach. I'm a hypnotherapist. I work in the psychedelic space and the coaching space in general. The topic of this channel, my interests, my passions, really is kind of this intersection between personal development, spiritual growth, the awakening process, and psychedelics in particular. So that's a lot of what we talk about here on the channel, are different kind of vantage points into kind of that overlapping, if you want to use a Venn diagram and kind of concept of all these kind of approaches and where they kind of overlap, because I feel like this is really relevant to a lot of, what everyone's going through here on planet Earth right now. So if you are new to the channel, you're interested in these topics, you're in the right place. I'm stoked to have you aboard for the conversation. Thank you for your attention. Let's go ahead and get into the topic. Okay, so with that being said, let me just say as a friendly reminder here, you are not your narrative. Okay, thanks. That's all I want to say. Bye. Thanks. Have a good night. No, just kidding. But really, that is the TLDR here. That is the kind of fundamental core message. And if you wanted to click the video off now, if you're able to really internalize that, that's the whole point. But that being said, a lot of people need a little more exposition, a little more like connecting the dots as to how we are arriving at a conclusion, like you are not your narrative. So let me go ahead and unpack that for you guys a bit more here. So in my experience, this is one of the crucial core, deep core kernel pieces of understanding that you need to have on any personal growth path. I don't care if it's just general personal development, up leveling in terms of, your monetary life or your sex life or, your productivity with your business as a business owner, or if this is about your mental health and healing yourself psychologically or spiritual growth. Doesn't matter. Whatever your pursuit is, this is a key crucial thing to understand, that you are not your narrative. So when it comes to psychedelics, this becomes really patently obvious. And, this is a little bit of an intro into this conversation, and I'm sure I'll be talking about it more and repeating and making more videos about this and unpacking it further for you guys. But I want to just kind of make a short, sweet, to the point reminder here to hold your identity and your sense of self and your narrative loosely. See, when we take psychedelics, one of the common messages, there are certain kind of common experiences that most people have, common messages that people get. One of them that just becomes such an aha moment when we're on psychedelics, but up until that point, oftentimes in our lives, is something we totally overlook or don't understand or feel confused about, or just generally is like a blind spot psychologically for most people, is understanding how we conflate our narrative with our actual selves. So when you're on psychedelics, it becomes really easy to kind of have a moment of like looking at all the beliefs and all the assumptions and all the reference experiences from your life, or whether it's what you're currently going through, or, your early childhood or your teenage years or your early adulthood, or whatever reference points you might be looking at, certain events or incidents that shaped you in a positive way or a negative one. And, generally speaking, for most people, we kind of go about life just having those there and assuming that those impactful events are what shaped us and are actually who we are, right? But when you're on psychedelics, you kind of get some distance, a little bit of looseness around this, and you realize that that's totally not the case, actually, that you are so much more than whatever narrative you're carrying about yourself, that you are so much more than the set of reference experiences that you generally pull from in order to define your sense of self, whether those are negative experiences or positive experiences. You're more than that. You're just vastly more than that, generally speaking. And I've had so many experiences with clients where once we start inquiring into this and they get it, they're like, holy shit, I forgot how much more I am than the few memories and stories I tell myself about who I am, right? So most people living in a default mode of existence, in a default reality, who have never tried to grow spiritually, have never tried to heal, have never tried to grow psychologically, have never done psychedelics or anything like that, a meditation retreat, and you're just talking your standard status quo default person living in reaction to their life experiences, will really live in a way where they think that whatever happened to them is definitive and is their identity, is who they are, right? And it can feel like it's so stuck together that it's fused, and it's really hard to tell the two apart, right? But when you really stop and think about it, there's so much, proof that we are more than our narrative. And what I want you to get out of this video is just understanding not only that you are more than your narrative, but that we live through narratives, right? That most people can construct a sense of self, right? So if you want to call it identity or ego, and that self is constructed out of a bunch of memories, right? A bunch of reference experiences, a bunch of reflections from other people, be they positive or negative, a bunch of, traumas probably for, in terms of ways we failed or shortcomings or, issues or problems we ran into, or strengths also, character qualities that always get reinforced, that we get reflected back to us, or natural talents we have, or natural interests or proclivities we have, or things we've done and invested a lot of time into to become good at because they're passions or hobbies. We confuse all of these things with who we actually are, not realizing that who we actually are is the intelligence, the deep, broad intelligence that chose to do all those things, that chose to identify or not with each reference experience, that chose to construct some sort of a meaning from each reference experience, and then the intelligence to connect the dots between these different reference experiences in a way that creates an overall meaning that we are then subscribing to and buying into. Now, we don't realize that we're the intelligence that created all of that, and that there's vastly more life experiences that have passed through our lives, through our experience, that we don't hold on to, that we don't define ourselves by, that we don't, link into that matrix of experiences that defines our sense of self. If you think about it, there's always going to be more things that you have experienced that you don't identify with, that aren't a part of your sense of who you are, than there are things that do. So what is this grouping that we do of these sets of memories and experiences and whatever, that inside of which we create an identity, a bubble inside of which we use to, use as a sense of reference for who we are, versus all of those outside of that grouping that are outside the bubble, that are still all experiences in our lives that we filter out and forget about and let go of and don't think about and don't worry about, that are also equally, truly a part of our life experience, right? What determines that? What defines that? And so one thing I want you to know, first of all, is that it is possible to change what is inside or outside that kind of boundary of your identity, right? So you can shift your identity. You can actually shift your sense of self, and based on things that are true about your life experience, right? So I want you to understand that there are things that you're filtering out that you've experienced that are true about you, or as equally true as whatever you're holding inside that boundary. I want you to know that you can exchange experiences in and out of that boundary and define yourself in very different ways. I want you to just understand in general that that this is a construct. This is an arbitrary construct. This is a creation of your unconscious mind that happens automatically, that for most people we will confuse with who we are, right? But we are more than even just the set of experiences, right? Because your experiences don't define you necessarily unless you allow them to. That's the whole point of what I'm saying here, right? You are also not only the person receiving the experience, but also the person creating experiences for others. You are the one ascribing meaning or no meaning to experiences. You are the one who, existed before you had any life experiences, right? You will be the person existing when your life experiences, come to a slow crawl as, later in life. You continue to be more and more and more all the time. You're learning all the time. You're growing. You're making new conclusions. You're having new experiences constantly, every day, every breath, every instant, every second, right? So, but yet most of that just flows through like a river, right? And yet we like to think that we are this narrative, but the narrative, the other thing to think about with that is, who's the narrator, right? Like we use the narrative to create a sense of narrator, right? The I, the ego, the identity self. And we use that to then create a sense of relationship and role in the world, right? Like for a lot of people, for example, especially if we're living reactively and we're living in default mode, what's kind of at the core of most people's identities is some form of flavor of victimhood, right? Of a victim identity. Especially if you're on a healing path and you have something to heal in the first place, there's probably a sense of victimhood associated with whatever setback or problem or issue has put you in a position where you feel like you need some healing, right? So, but who is the person constructing the interpretation of victim, the meaning, the construing, the inference of victim? Who is that, right? And is that part of you, all of you? I would argue not. I guess one of the last things I want to say, I'm kind of on a rant more than a linear thing here. I was hoping to kind of create some like clear, cogent points, but I hope you're getting just from the stew of what I'm saying here, the flow of what I'm saying, like a sense that you are more, than you're just your body. For example, you're also your mind. You're more than your mind. You're also your emotional self. You're more than your body and mind and emotional self. You're also your intuitive self. You're more than that too. You're also your spiritual self. You're more than that too. You are a member of society. You're more than that too. You are a member of life and of the world. You're more than that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are so many facets to who we are. And yet all of those aren't who we really are. Those are all narratives. Those are all stories. Those are all interpretations. Those all have bias and leaning and slants and some form of flavor of agenda underneath them all, right? And I want you to know that it is entirely possible to drop all of that meaning making and all of that narrating about yourself and all of that reacting to whatever narrative you've constructed It's possible to look at the narrative, to step back from it and look at it and choose again and decide if you want to have that narrative own you or if you want to own it. And if you want to own it, do you want to keep it or do you want to put it aside? Is it a useful piece of your narrative or not? Your narrative is a tool for making some coherence of life around you. That's the other piece I want to say really quick. Tangent here. You're not only a narrator of your own experience, you're a narrator of the world around you, right? And a meaning ascriber to the world around you. But that it doesn't mean that those meanings are factual, whole and complete, totally accurate, totally correct, or the whole story, right? But yet we will create a set of narratives, not only about ourselves and our role in the world around us and in, our life, but we'll also create a set of narratives about life, about people, about the world. Now, I'm kind of looping back around to one of the points here that I want to just kind of reiterate. When you do this, when we do this, because this isn't personal to you, we all fucking do this. This is the ego. This is the process of identification, right? This is at the heart of the ego. Is identity, is narrative. You can't have an ego or an identity without a narrative. So another way of understanding what ego is or identity is it's your set of narratives that you hold on to and cling to and use as a proxy for reality. But it's not reality. It's like an intermediary between your raw sensory experience and raw physical reality out there. You have this middle layer there that often fucks us up. And like I was saying, it's not personal. But here's the thing I want you to really get about narrative construction and, beginning to understand that you don't have to buy into your own narrative, and that really the wise choice, the egoless thing to do, or the movement towards egolessness, which is also the movement towards your own divinity and your own transcendental nature and your own deepest wisdom and more access to more of who you are, all your best qualities, that you're filtering out because it doesn't fit into your everyday narrative. The access to that more comes from holding your narrative loosely, it's a skill that you learn to just kind of hold it loosely, take it less seriously. Don't buy into your own narrator, right? What happens when we take the narration as truth, as seriousness, is that every narration formats our perception of ourselves and of life around us. And as part of that formatting of perception, right, it narrows the scope of everything we can see down to a much smaller slice of reality. And as it does that, it filters out most of the information we're taking in. And as it does that, it impacts what we're capable of. So this is why you'll hear, like from Tony Robbins seminars or other personal development seminars, you'll hear these miracle stories of people who self-heal or who got over the most crazy fucking things, or who, physically heal themselves of major maladies and issues, right? How is that possible? That only becomes possible when a person's narrative loosens up enough that they're willing to let go of it and open up to what else is there. That whole field of possibility, really, most of that exists outside your narrative. And so I want you to really understand when we are buying into our narrative as truth about ourselves or about reality, we are narrowing the scope of all the set of possibilities available to us, including possibilities that we can perceive. So this ties into something in the brain, a piece in the brain. Tony Robbins, interestingly enough, funny that I brought him up, talks about this a lot, but it's something you'll hear about in science. It's something you'll hear from like Joe Dispenza too, and lots of different people. It's just a piece of neuroscience called the RAS. the reticular activating system or activation system. Now, the RAS is basically the thing that controls what's inside your window of conscious awareness versus what's outside of your window of conscious awareness. And if you go to Tony's seminar, he'll say something like, I want you to notice everything in the room that's blue, 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 blue. By doing that, what you're doing, you're tuning in your RAS. You're bringing blue inside of your RAS for a little while. And then while you're noticing everything blue, he says, okay, I want you to tell me what was brown in the room. And because your brain is sorting for blue, you never notice brown, right? This is called the RAS, the reticular activation system. So this is also true with our narrative and our identity, right? Where we are so busy sorting for a certain narrative and trying to fit all of the experiences we have into their narrative that we've already created, that we filter out all kinds of things that don't fit inside that narrative. Options, people, pieces of wisdom, intuitions we have, again, skills and capabilities we might have, emotions that might be important or empowering, pieces of truth. All of that shit gets filtered out outside of our RAS, or if you want to think of it in hypnotherapy terms, outside of your conscious mind and back into the unconscious. And so just understand that as you're married to your, sense of narrative about yourself, as you're married to your identity, and if you're clinging tightly to it, you're missing out on a lot of possibility, on a lot of flexibility, on a lot of ability to heal or be bigger or be better or grow or change or transform, right? And this is so important to get, and to start to explore, well, if I'm not my narrative, what am I? Who am I? If I'm the intelligence that created my narrative in the first place, how intelligent is that intelligence? Like, what else is that capable of? If it's that intelligent that it could automatically, cluster together, certain pieces of my life experience and filter out other pieces of my life experience, how intelligent is that intelligence? And what are the other pieces of my life experience that might be useful to include in my sense of self? And what would it be like to live, outside of a narrative in particular and be comfortable with not holding on to one particular sense of self? Maybe making room for all kinds of different aspects of myself that I don't normally let out, that might be really fun or really beautiful or really profound or really powerful or really interesting or charismatic or skillful or you name it. And so, that's the message for today. I just want you to know you're not your narrative. You might think you are. You might believe you are. You might have lived your entire life up to this point thinking that you are. Or, maybe you're someone who's done, a bunch of meditation and Vipassana and, Buddhist studies and psychedelics, and you've been outside of your narrative long enough to realize that it's a narrative and that it doesn't own you and that you're more than that and that you're truly like infinite and you're an eternal soul having a human experience that's filtered down in its very narrow, little scope of attention and standard behavior patterns, but you're not that. You're this deep, profound thing. Whatever, vantage point you're coming back to this message from, I just want to put this message out there because it's so important. Your healing, your growth, your next level, your actualization, your profound expansion as a person into a better life comes by letting go of your narrative. And at very least, being willing to expand or transform or shift your narrative to a new one. But even better still is learning how to loosen up your grasp on your narrative altogether. Let it just be this thing that, is part of being human, but doesn't own you and doesn't control you. Anyways, sending you all big love. And thanks so much for watching if you've taken this whole thing in. And I hope it serves you well. And there'll be more videos on the way shortly. Take care.